Well, hello and welcome to all of our viewers around the world. I'm Fiona Lang-Sharp, IBCLC Director of Communications and MC here at Gold Learning. Today, we're talking all about our Gold Lactation Conference 2024 coming up really soon. That's right, folks. It is that time. You can get in your registration today at goldlactation.com. Now, I know many of you have already registered already, so I know you're super excited about what's coming up. We're interviewing our speakers, getting some extra content for you, which is really fun, and getting to know what's coming up, of course, in the conference. Today, I have my very good friend and colleague, Dianne Cassidy. I'm so excited, Dianne, to see you today and get to interview you and have a little bit of fun. How are you, my friend?
I am good, Fiona. I love being here with you. Thank you.
Well, I'm excited.
So
You're
fun.
talking about one of those topics. Oh my gosh, it does it ever, I feel like it's a hot topic and then people don't talk about it enough because we've almost like normalized cesarean birth in a sense, right?
Mhm.
And so I feel like we don't talk enough about the consequences. Now, this is nothing. People are like, well, some people want to have a cesarean birth or they have to, or it's an emergency and so forth and so on, which is absolutely true. We still know the rates are too high, though, right? We know worldwide the rates of cesarean birth, according to the World Health Organization, are still way out of control, correct?
Way out of control and higher than what should be
Right.
for the population of the world.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of work to be done. And so we know that in fact that there's people having unnecessary cesarean births, right? So it's not those that perhaps choose or need or, for whatever reason, there's definitely unnecessary. You're talking directly about how breastfeeding is impacted, right? So your title topic is Cutting Through the Challenges, Unveiling the Cesarean Breastfeeding Connection. So I'm wondering, what are you going to be like? What are you going to be touching on in this presentation? And was there anything new that you found? Is it more complex? Are people actually doing better because we have more cesareans? Like, what is going on right now?
I did find some really interesting information, Fiona. So I'm glad that
Hmm.
you asked. I know. Did you know that sucking is different based on how they are born?
I did not know that.
That
I've
they
never heard
actually
that before.
they suck differently depending on whether they were vaginal birth or cesarean birth.
Now, what's that based on? Because I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to say, sure, I could recognize, is it due to the drugs?
No, not necessarily the drugs, but the drugs are something we're going to be talking about as well.
Okay, okay, yeah,
Because the drugs absolutely also impact how sleepy those little babies can be,
sure.
what their suck coordination could be like. It is the drugs do play a huge part of a cesarean delivery. And we know
Wow.
'cause people, who are having cesarean are always, am I going to be able to breastfeed? Is it going to impact it? And of course,
Sure.
no, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And we know our breastfeeding initiation rates are pretty high.
Sure.
So we know that those babies are going to be able to breastfeed, but will those parents need a little extra support?
Hmm.
Absolutely. They absolutely
Yeah.
will need more support. Are they getting it? I don't know that they are.
Yeah. And you might not know the number. I was going to say, what's the statistic of, people that are introducing infant formula who did have a cesarean birth? I'm going to bet that it's probably higher, right?
Higher.
It's
Hmm.
higher. Yeah, that's what I thought. And I think that's what we seem to forget. So we talk about this initiation rate, and I think it's almost like this bragging right. The institutions, hospitals, communities, and so forth and so on. They're like, oh, breastfeeding rates are really, really high, but it's based on initiation. It's not based on the first 2 weeks, because within the first 2 weeks, we've had a huge drop off and or introduction of infant formula, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And the rates of infant formula being introduced in the hospital, especially to babies with cesareans, is pretty high.
Wow.
And for initiation rates, you only have to put the baby to breast one time in the hospital for it to be considered a breastfeeding baby. And
Right.
then
And the
check
box
that
gets
box.
checked. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because then most cesarean women or people that birth to cesarean They are in the hospital longer as well. So have you seen any research on that? Because I'm thinking, okay, so now perhaps they do better than the cohort of vaginal birth because they actually stay there longer. Because you would think, in theory, they're actually getting more contact with staff and maybe even a lactation consultant that's on rotation. Was there any information on that, Dianne? I mean, in theory, it seems reasonable.
It does seem reasonable, doesn't it? I have not
Yeah,
seen any information on that. I'm sure there probably is some.
yeah,
Anecdotally, I can tell you from families that I have seen that
yeah.
those babies usually end up with more supplementation because they're
Wow.
noticing that their weight gain has dropped a little bit more because they're in the hospital a day longer and they're being monitored a
Right.
lot closer. So a lot of times those babies are supplemented more.
Yeah, that is so interesting. And then taking it another step, so most of us will be fairly, familiar with Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative. And so this is where we have staff that have been trained and, the hospital has been given a designation. Have you looked at those hospitals and seen if they actually do a better rate of, breastfeeding and follow through postpartumly, or is that not something that's available?
I have not seen that. I can do a little digging and see if I can find it by the counter.
Oh, there, bring it on. We're gonna
I
have more,
know.
gonna have even more. Yeah, I just have so many questions in this area because we do just like, other people's communities who are listening in today, we have a rate of between 32 and 34% of the women, mothers, birthing parents in my community, just in my little community, that will end up having a cesarean birth. I find it fascinating because I feel like the most significant thing for me is people that are unprepared. There's this unpreparedness of, the type of birth that could impact you. And if you have a cesarean birth, we know that impacts you more. There's healing and pain and, management and all those types of things that happen. So people just don't talk about it, Dianne, prenatally. I feel like there's a lot of this, I'll see how it goes. But
Mhm.
preparing seems to be one of the most obvious ways that you could do because it's such a minimal intervention when you think about it. Did you see any correlation with better success rates with prenatal consults with families?
Prenatal consults do give a lot better success rates.
Hmm.
But you're right, we don't talk about it enough. And as somebody who
Right.
teaches childbirth classes all the time,
Hmm.
it wasn't something that we discussed. And if you
Right.
look at a room of attendees, say you have
Hmm.
6 couples in the room, half of them are going to be cesarean deliveries.
Yeah.
So why are we not talking about it more than it should be?
Yeah, absolutely. I think being prepared and understanding what's happening would avoid some of that. It would circumvent, I think a lot of the, initiation of infant formula because I think it's a lot of what people don't know, right? They don't know how to ask the questions and advocate or, and of course, sometimes we know it's necessary. We're not blinded by the fact that, feeding babies is really, really important. But we also know that primarily the majority of women or those that identify as the breastfeeding parent have enough milk. It's just about how to get it from the breast to the baby as
Mhm.
well. I'm really excited about this topic. I feel like it kind of goes under the radar a little bit. We've kind of got a little bit quiet about it. So I'm looking forward to you having that voice, and to share with us. But also what you said at the top of our conversation, that those sucking patterns are different. That is just mind blowing, and I want to know more. So I'm going to ask you these questions, but you can answer them during the session. I want to know more about how it impacts them, short term, long term, what we can do to help families, know about this or help the baby on site. Or, some people don't see them until they're in the community, all those types of things. So yeah, we'll get to talk more about this, Dianne, when you come and
And
visit us. Yeah.
there's so much to talk about. And we didn't even mention the skin to skin piece of it either. We didn't even get to talk
Yes.
about that piece because that gets kind of tossed aside as well.
I know. I see that in the OR that the baby does skin to skin. And again, I feel like it's becoming a little bit of a checkbox. Did mom do skin to skin? Check. But how long was it? How long
That's
and
the thing.
right?
Mhm. That's the thing. And
Yeah.
research shows that it's a lot shorter, that those babies are getting some skin to skin time, but it's a lot shorter than those vaginal deliveries. And
Wow.
it's really unfortunate because we
Well,
know how important that is
yeah.
for those families.
definitely room for improvement in this area for sure. And I think we can set our clients up better. And some of us know that some of our families are going to be requesting, or they have to go in for cesarean birth. So we can really help them plan better, in order to, really not only get breastfeeding initiated, but really get it off to a good start. And we're talking about like the first 6 weeks, because we know that that's the foundation for the majority of our families and our babies. Dianne Cassidy, it is always so good to talk to you, my friend.
I know, I love it.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And again, for all of you listening in, Diane's going to be here live at our Gold Lactation Conference, which means you can sit down with her. There's going to be a live Q&A. She's going to be going through this whole topic, telling us some of the new research and what's out there, how to really plan and set up well for our clients, and how to, really support them as well in the postpartum period. Your presentation, Dianne, cutting through the challenges, unveiling the cesarean breastfeeding connection. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Fiona. My pleasure.
And thank you to all of our viewers. Thanks for joining in on this conversation once again. We can't wait to see you at the lives. You can head over to the website right now to goldlactation.com, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye for now, everyone.
Bye.